Recording.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the South Fulton Coalition. We have our special guest here tonight, Mayor Kobi. We will be assisted by Calvin Bennett. Calvin Bennett is a resident of District 5, and at this time, I would like to just go over some ground rules that we have. This is an opportunity for the mayor to speak about himself and for him to speak about what he plans to do for the residents of the city of South Fulton. We ask that on all of our calls, we ask that all of the candidates refrain from badgering the candidates or anyone else that may be on the call or not. We prefer that you not mention your competition because this is an event for you to talk about yourself to the public. I'm sorry, and we went over, please not attack anybody. We want this to be as respectful as possible. So if we see any disrespect at all, we will remove you from the meeting. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to our moderator for the evening, Calvin Bennett. Calvin, you have the floor.
Hello, good evening, everybody, my great citizens of South Fulton. As Rashad just told you, my name is Calvin Bennett of District 5, and just a little bit about me. I've been living in South Fulton for the past 30 years. I ran for office twice here in the district. In the last election, I went to sleep. I was in the runoff, and I woke up. I was out of the runoff. But as you know, it was a tight race. But I've always been committed to service in my community, and I'm really appreciative to the South Fulton Coalition to even invite me and to host this particular meeting. And I'd like to thank you guys, Rashad and Mr. Booth, for what you do as far as committing your time and efforts to passing on information about our city and the politics surrounding it. Now, that's enough about me because I know this is going to go for a while. We have, as we said, we got Mayor Kobi. A mayor, he's been our mayor for the last 4 years. And I'm just going to start by just saying, hello, Mayor, welcome. How you feeling today?
I'm okay.
Okay, I like that. We're gonna get some energy out of you. I hope you're feeling okay. Okay, so Mayor, why don't you just start off by just introducing yourself? There may be a couple of people that really don't know you. Take a couple of minutes to just tell us about yourself.
All right, well, my name is Kobi. I am the mayor. I started off as Khalid. I was born and raised here in the city of South Fulton. Actually born, there's like a lot of beeping. I don't know how to mute that on my side. But I was actually born on this side of town, on the north side of town where I live now. Around the corner from Loch Lomond off of Wallace Road, Skyview Drive. I was born in 1976, so I am 49 this year. I was born at Piedmont Hospital. My mom said I knew you were mine because you were the only Black baby in the nursery. So she drove me home to Skyview Drive. I was then raised on Old National. So I am the only candidate for mayor that was actually born and raised in the city of South Fulton. There may be one other candidate. But I was elected to city council in 2017. I was a founding member of city council, and then I ran for mayor and became the mayor. The way that I really got into politics, well, longer story shorter, my parents have both been involved in civic life my entire life. My mother ran Grady's Bankhead Clinic for about 30 years and then went on to become a VP at Grady and opened all of the clinics around Metro Atlanta, from the clinic that was briefly at the airport to the clinic in East Point, the clinic that was in the Kroger in Decatur off of Candler. And my father was an accountant. He is still alive. My mom died my first year. My father is still alive. He's 83. He lives in the Lakes at Cedar Grove, and he was an accountant for the city of Atlanta for every mayor from Maynard Jackson through Kasim Reed. And so that they really taught me a lot about civics and the importance of being engaged. My mother always said that to whom much is given, much is respect, much is. And in 2015, law school at John Marshall Law School, and Mike Brown was murdered by police in Ferguson, which is a suburb of St. Louis. It's sort of like maybe the South Fulton of St. Louis. And I co-founded the Atlanta chapter of Black Lives Matter. So I was a part of the movement for Black Lives. And in 2016, I went to work for Stacey Abrams, just learning electoral politics and how to run and win elections. But that night, that was the first time Trump was elected president, and we lost so many races in Georgia, including the race that I was working on. But I saw that the city of South Fulton had been created. So I went to my comrades in the movement for Black Lives and I said, this city is going to be very Black. I didn't know that at the time we were going to be the Blackest city in the United States of America, but I knew that we were going to be a very Black city. I was familiar with the city because I had grown up here. And I said to myself and to my colleagues, my comrades in the movement, by that time, we had gone beyond just police brutality, right? We were developing housing policies, education policies, workers' rights policies. We were working with a lot of brilliant folks, not just in movements around the country, but in academia. We were working with academicians to come up with this multidisciplinary platform, which is still available if you go to M4BL policy. You can see all of a lot of the things that I've been talking about for years have come out of that policy, and that sort of policy platform. And I said to my comrades, if there were ever a place in the United States, certainly if there were ever a place in Georgia where we could put these policies into practice to improve the material conditions and everyday lives of Black people, it would be the city of South Fulton. And so that is the platform that I've run on as council and as a councilman and then as mayor, is really about improving the quality of our lives. And the city of South Fulton is 93% African American. So it's not all African American, but what we know, what data shows us, is that when you improve the lives of Black people, you improve the lives of everyone. Because across nearly every metric in American life, from housing, healthcare outcomes, to generational wealth, we are at the bottom of these statistics. And so when you create conditions and you create programs that improve our lives, we create a rising tide that lifts all boats for everyone. And so that's really been my platform for these past 8 years. I am running now because a lot of the work that I've wanted to do, a lot of the policies that I really cared about, particularly about planning and zoning, which I hope to really talk a lot about tonight, and economic development in our communities, those dreams haven't really been realized. I feel that is because I have had a council that I have been at odds with for the past 4 years, in the same way, if you think about President Biden or President Barack Obama, when they became president, they had these Republican Congress folks their goal was to make them a one-term president. And that's pretty much what I've been up against. So this year, I'm asking for people to not just re-elect me, but to elect a council that will support the mayor that the people elect. whoever that is, whether you vote for me or not, really question the candidates for council and say, will you support this mayor? Because the mayor is the CEO of the city. He's the spokesperson of the city. He's the chief advocate of public policy. He is the leader. And I think it's really important that you all as citizens elect a council who is going to support the leader that you elect. And I'll stop.
Let me ask you this, man. I'm glad you covered all of that, what you covered, and I figured you would. I wouldn't have to ask you 3 or 4 questions. You answered a lot of the questions I was going to ask about why you're running and those type of things. But getting back to the council, because I think a lot of us are just curious about the dynamics between not just you and the council, just the council in general. And I think moving forward, more focus has to be put on, collaborative efforts. And but what I want to ask you is, uh, why do you think the council was so in opposition against your ideals right from the start, from what I've observed?
I think that I don't want to paint our council with a broad brush.
Right.
There are 7 individual people that have individual ideas and goals. I think there are some members of council who didn't understand what I was saying when I talked about, us being Black on purpose, right? They thought that I was, that I hated white people, or that I city that was only for Black people, or just. There are some people who knew what I was talking about, and they just don't agree. We just have philosophical or ideological differences. And there are some people on council who just didn't want me to be mayor, right?
Let's take the first issue you mentioned, the blackest city. Because I've heard a lot of feedback, negative feedback on you using that term, and I heard some positive feedback. Looking back at that particular situation, is there anything you would have did different just to tone down the pushback, or just to, because I don't think it was something that was really of political value to us as a city at the time. Just what are your thoughts on it? Is there anything you could have did different as far as your pushback on that, your ideas?
I think it's actually something that we need to talk about more, right? I will give you an example in talking about planning and zoning. This was to be our year of planning and zoning. I declared it as the mayor. This is going to be our year of planning and zoning. We are overhauling our zoning ordinance, and right now we're really taking a look at our future land use map, which is how we plan to manage this nearly 100 square miles for the next 20 years. This is our roadmap for that. One of the first things that I did was I asked the city manager, because we have a city manager form of government. So I always have to ask either the council or the city manager, hey, can we do this? If you've watched any of our council meetings, you'll see very often when there is a controversial zoning item, the staff, the Community Development and Regulatory Affairs, which is our CDRA, which is our fancy name for our Planning and Zoning Department, they will make a recommendation to approve something. But the Planning Commission, who are appointed by mayor and council, they're citizens, they make a recommendation not to approve it, to deny it. And there was a lot of conflict between the council, the planning commission, and the staff about, whether we would approve or deny things. So the first thing that I did, I said, we all need to get in a room together. We don't all have the same facts. We don't all have the same information or the same education about what planning and zoning is. So what we saw, and I'm sorry, this is a long answer, but this is a complex topic, and I think it really goes to the heart of the question. The Planning Commission was looking at, what does the law say? What does the map say? The map says that this is an acceptable use. The law says this is an acceptable use, so we're going to approve it. The citizens would say, I don't care what the map says. I don't care what the law says. Maybe I care what the law says, but I don't care what the map says. This isn't something that the citizens want. And so what we were finding, and one of the reasons that I've called for this year of planning, is that what the map says doesn't reflect what our citizens and our residents actually want to see. And so there's a problem with our map. And until we fix it, the Planning Commission and the Planning Department are going to be at odds with one another. And then the council is caught in the middle, right? Because we're trying to uphold the law, but we're also trying to reflect the wishes of our residents. When we all got into the room together, there was a lot of skepticism we had the members of the Planning Commission. We also had the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is another part of the process. If we say no, the developer can go and apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And there was a lot of skepticism in the room. And I had to say to these trainers, we had these incredible trainers who were from University of Georgia, Carl Vinson School of Government. They were my Caucasian brothers and sisters. And they didn't really understand this level of skepticism. And I said to the trainers, what is happening here is that in our communities, developers come and they try to build cheap homes, right? Or they trap us in predatory loans and predatory mortgages, or they try to flood our communities with landfills, warehouses. Now the thing is, right, data centers. Our communities have been under, as Black people, our communities have been under attack ever since we've had communities. They've been under physical attacks, places like, Philly, they dropped bombs. Places like Tulsa, they dropped bombs. 100 years ago, Philly was like 40 years ago, they dropped bombs. But there all of these efforts to undermine our property value, undermine the wealth that we are building in our communities. So when developers come, there is a natural skepticism that we have. It is inherited from 400 years of abuse and exploitation. You have to understand that that is what's in the room. So when I talk about us being the Blackest city in America, what I am saying is that when we come into a room with developers, when we come into a city council meeting or a planning and zoning meeting, there is a natural skepticism, which is not irrational. It has been earned by the way that we are treated. And so how we enter into these programs, we can't just announce, I all know, but right now, we're going to get into this, I know, but right now, we're overhauling our future land use and zoning map. Our first hearing on it is going to be this Tuesday. There's only one hearing that's required, and then we could vote to approve this map. But very few people have seen it. I don't think that we have done a good job of we let people know that we were doing this. We had all of these feedback sessions. But after that, once we developed the map and put it out there, we didn't tell anybody that it was out there. And so that is the kind of thing, right? When people come to the meeting, they think, oh, all of the decisions have been made. Y'all have been hiding this map. So I literally just had this conversation with members of our planning and zoning department and our assistant city manager yesterday. I said, when you go to the city's website, the first thing that you should see is a pop-up for this future land use map that we're going to have a hearing on Tuesday. And there should be a place where people can put in their address, see what the future land use for their address is, and make comments about it before they get to the meeting, because people are going to get to the meeting and say, oh, this is that okie doke. Y'all have gotten with developers and y'all have decided all of this stuff, and you're just now telling us, and now you're going to vote on it, and we haven't really had enough time to have feedback. So
Mayor, this is taking place. This meeting is taking place Tuesday.
This meeting is taking place Tuesday.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Those
Yes.
things that you just outlined that you think will work well for us, why wasn't that put in place 6 months ago prior to us getting to this point?
Well, we didn't have the maps until maybe 2 months ago. We didn't have
then why are they pressing the vote so soon before putting some of those ideas in place?
So we're not going to vote on October the 14th. We're not going to vote on Tuesday. I have said that we're not going to have that vote until December.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a second hearing on November the 12th at 6 p.m. because a lot of people have just now hearing about this hearing, right? So we're going to have a second hearing for the 12th. And now if you go to City of South Fulton GA.gov, the first thing you will see is a pop-up that has the future land use map there for you to make comment and do these things on. But the same thing happened when we were building the when we made these plans to build the 911 center and the police headquarters. You know, people flooded these town halls because they were concerned that we were going to eliminate our millage rate cap and that homeowners were going to be taken advantage of, and that we were going to hike up property taxes, because these are the kinds of things we historically have seen as a people. And I think that we have to keep saying we're the blackest city in America and that we are a city full of Black families and Black homeowners, because we need to have that in our mind to change the way that we do business as a city. We can't do business the same way Sandy Springs or Atlanta or some other city does it, because our people have a different experience with government, and we always have to keep that at the forefront.
Okay, let's take that philosophy, which I agree with. You know, how does that align with the council? Because I believe, just like you said, a lot of this stuff isn't personal. It's working as a body that's got us confused and, you know, always going at each other's stuff. But how does that align with this council?
I think that you know, without hearing that long explanation and just seeing City in America or Black on Purpose, it triggered a reaction amongst people. I think that as council, I know that as council has gotten to know me, there's several members of council that I can have like thoughtful conversations with, right? And they've come around to being less confrontational with me. All of the old National Council people, Councilwoman Pritchett, Councilwoman Williams,
7.
Bell. I think though that we do have to talk about this other component. When I ran for mayor, 6 out of the 7 members of council endorsed the previous mayor. There was a member of council who made a whole website, right? And she again is leading the charge. There are people on council, they cannot beat me on policy, right? And so they have tried to tarnish my character and drag my name through the mud on character issues, because just as we saw with Republicans and President Obama and President Biden, particularly with President Biden, their goal was to make a one-term president so that they could get president of their choice. They wanted Trump back. And there are members on council that want the old mayor back, right? Or they want to put in place a puppet mayor that they can control. So they know that they can't control me. And that I'm not going to bend to their will and the agenda that they and their supporters may have. And so much of this is really about trying to convince citizens not to trust me so that they can be in power. It's really not an ideological difference with some members of
But
council.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with it to an extent. But considering the limited power that the mayor has in this particular structure, we got the strong city or city manager run, and the council doing legislature, and the mayor being something like the face of the city. It's like, what power, what can they take? You know what I'm saying? If to validate your point, you got to substantiate that a little bit better, for me anyway. Because you're talking about them taking power away from you and that type of thing, which I get where you're coming from, but I just need a little bit more clarity.
I'm not sure that I understand your question.
Okay, you're saying that it's a power thing,
Yes.
and I'm looking at the mayor's position. What your strengths or what your let's say what your responsibilities are as mayor. The city manager has her responsibilities. The council have their responsibility. So somewhere, someone's crossing the lines of responsibilities to cause conflict. You're saying that they don't want. I'm trying to figure out, where is that conflict taking place between you guys, between the council and the mayor? Because I'm not saying it's personal. I'm saying the body of the council versus a mayor, whether it's you or any other mayor.
So the charter says that the mayor is the spokesperson of the city, right?
Yes.
Chief advocate of public policy. The charter also says that the mayor makes the agenda for every council meeting, which is where we vote. So the mayor, the job of the mayor under our charter, and I think really just in general, right? The job of the mayor is to chart a course for the city, right? The mayor does talk about when we talk about it and how, right.
Mm-hmm.
So a great example in 2023, which was another election year. In 2023, there were members of council that were trying to pass a sanitation plan for the city, right? We were being told, right? And so to push this idea forward, they were telling residents, we have to do this or else we won't get our local option sales tax money, which is our second greatest source of revenue. That was a lie. We could, there are certain things that you can do in order to secure your local option sales tax money. One of them is a citywide sanitation service, but another one is a library, right? The city in the city of Brookhaven, they bought a house, they put some books in it, and then that became the Brookhaven Library, and they were able to keep their local option sales tax. The creating a sanitation service is a good idea. It had we had too many trucks of different companies driving on our roads, right? So that was a problem because we were paying millions of dollars to repave these streets. Some people were not getting a great quality of service, and if we were able to negotiate on behalf of the residents with one vendor, we could demand certain things, we could demand better service. So the problem wasn't the idea, but the execution was rushed. We rushed into a sanitation contract, which no attorney had read, right? Go back and look at the meeting, and I asked, who has this contract? And the at the time, an assistant city manager was like, it's been reviewed. By whom? By what attorney? No attorney had reviewed the contract. They voted to approve the contract without any discussion. There were many times that I tried to bring up in work sessions, hey, here are some of the issues that residents are raising about the rates, about putting this on property taxes. I think that we just need to slow this down, right? So again, as the mayor, I'm saying, let's slow this process down and have more discussion. As a spokesperson for the city, as a chief advocate of public policy, I'm saying the residents are telling us they're not ready to do this yet. We rushed through that sanitation contract, which hadn't been read, and we put it on people's property tax bills. Our seniors had so little time to prepare for this new sanitation tax that we had to create a $500,000 sanitation assistance program where we basically just paid for seniors who couldn't do it in the time that we were trying to do it. Now, I vetoed putting it on the tax bill, and I tried to slow it down, but because we have a council manager form of government and they had enough votes on council to push this through, it got pushed through. What we have found out in the intervening years is that program has lost money every year. It lost $500,000 the first year because we had to pay so many people's bills. It lost $500,000 last year. And in 2024, we had to rebuy all of the trash cans that we gave people. So we lost $1.8 million. That provision was buried in the contract that wasn't reviewed by an attorney. So like this is a time where, as the leader of the city, I'm saying we need to slow this process down. And I was overruled by council members who were running for election that year and wanted to campaign on, hey, look, I got this sanitation project done. Wait, you're muted. I can't hear you. You're saying something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Someone had their hand up. I think a hand is up in the chat.
Yes. So, Mayor, if we can go back, you had mentioned about the charter says that you're the one that makes the agenda. And I know I've gotten a lot of feedback from residents that on the agenda, it used to display how long each section should take. Why did that disappear, and can that come back? Because that was very helpful to a lot of the residents.
It's hard to bring it back because our city clerk, who reports to council, we moved to a new system, and I am told by the city clerk that they can't put it back in. I would love to see it back in. But there were many innovations that I tried to bring to city council as mayor. One of them were topic-based meetings. What you see in our agenda is that we may be voting on a variety of different things. We may be voting on police things. We may be voting on parks things, right? And we'll vote for something for one person's park, and then somebody will say, well, what about my park? And then we go back and we got to vote for something. And I said, let's do this in an orderly fashion. Let's talk about all of the parks things. And it doesn't mean if there's some emergency, that if there's some contract that we have to do for public works or something else that I wouldn't allow it on the agenda because we're only talking about park stuff. I'm not that inflexible, but I said, let's look at these departments holistically. We have about 15 departments. Let's look at like 1 or 2 departments a month. And then that way we can focus all of our energy on doing things in an orderly fashion. Council overruled that. The same thing with trying to time out the order of the agenda so that we know how long we're going to be in a meeting. And if I'm saying I'm not going to allow this item on the agenda, it may just be because we only have so many hours. And if we don't want to have an 8-hour council meeting that goes to 12 or 1 in the morning, everything can't be on every agenda.
Let me ask you, Rashad.
No, I was just saying thank you for that. No, I was just saying thank you. That was it.
Let me ask you a couple of quick questions that we can get through because I know we could get into some deeper conversations on a couple of other topics. As far as public comments, would you be for or against the opening public comments back up to the public, where we get our 2 minutes regardless of what's on the agenda? And
Absolutely.
why do you think? And why do you think that was why was something that the council even voted for?
I don't know if you remember, but the first couple of months that I was mayor, council was giving me a really hard time. They were saying no to everything, and citizens were upset that the mayor that they had elected was not being allowed to lead. So they would come to council and express their displeasure. There are members on council who were very thin-skinned and didn't like to hear criticism. So not only did they change the rule about comments, so now you can only comment on whatever items on the agenda council has approved. So if I put an item on the agenda, council can vote to remove it, and then citizens can't comment on it, even if they've driven out that night to make those comments. They also closed down the chat. We had a really active YouTube chat. I think that all feedback is good feedback. And if you can't, as an elected official, take 2 minutes of criticism from a resident, then you're in the wrong line of work. But beyond the criticism, a lot of the comments and questions that we would hear in the chat would really help guide our discussion. I would be reading the YouTube chat, and sometimes there would be presentations by developers or people that were offering programs to the city, and there would be really good questions and comments that would be in the chat that I would ask that would really help enlighten the discussion. It also created a community online where people would really join the council meeting, and they could talk. Citizens could talk to one another as we were talking as a council. People would also come. This is the last thing I'll say. People would also come in public comment and talk about things that we might not have even been thinking about. There may have been a street without street lights, or there may have been an issue going on in the city that we weren't even aware of, that citizens would bring to our attention. So I just think having that two-way feedback is really important.
Okay, I'm gonna jump around here, but I got to hit this before we get too deep in it. There's a lot of talk by candidates in the last 8 years about helping seniors age in place. Over the last 8 years, nothing was done about helping seniors age in place from the point of view of actually assisting them financially or coming up with a plan. Why is there any discussion whatsoever with all the property that we have, all the free agriculture we have in this city, to develop a housing authority for seniors and a public housing authority? We're bigger than College Park and East Point put together, and those folks have senior housing authorities where they take control over housing for their seniors. Right now, when we talk about it, this is just talk. Fulton County handles it. But, if we talking about being the blackest city, and we want to do things different, taking control where we can take control is what we need to be doing. What's your thoughts on a housing authority, public housing and senior housing authorities?
Okay, I'm going to tell you my thoughts, but first I gotta push back a little bit.
Push back. I figured you would.
We've done lots of things for our seniors. I just told you about one. We created a solid waste assistance program. The first year we rolled out this
I'm talking about housing. I get that.
In housing, we have code cares. So code enforcement, instead of when we find seniors and veterans whose houses are not up to code, they can apply to this code cares program, and we'll work with Habitat for Humanity and other volunteers to come and fix their house at no cost. The state legislature passed this this legislation that said, your property taxes couldn't go up more than a certain percentage each year. 2 years before the state legislature passed that, we passed that on city council. We have given ARPA grants to seniors. We had an ARPA assistance program. We have another one coming out through the Community Development Block Grant Program, where we're going to be giving grants to seniors to help repair their homes. So there are things that we are doing. But in terms of a housing authority, I 100% believe that that is something that we should be doing as a city, right? There isn't an appetite for that on council right now, but I believe it is something that we should be taking a lead on. One of the things that I have talked about in my first campaign for mayor is that the best way to control our land is to own it. Because
Exactly.
in a society, whoever owns the land has the majority of property rights. I'm proud to say that under this administration, we have purchased over 400 acres of land. I think that we now need to be working with our development authority and creating a housing authority to build the kinds of housing and live, work, play communities that our residents want to see and that we deserve, and not just do what our development authorities have been doing thus far, which is giving tax breaks to developers, mostly to build data centers.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, we have a question from Ellen Miller Mapp. Ms. Mapp, please unmute yourself. You have the floor. Ms. Mapp, you should be able to unmute yourself now. You have the floor.
There we go. Hello,
Hey, Ellen.
hello there. Thank you for joining us and allowing us to give the chance to talk with you. Hi, everybody. I'm glad we're on the topic of seniors. And not that seniors need to be made special, but seniors do need to have assistance because after a lifetime of work and then suddenly have to change to limited incomes and everything else happening with lower health and so forth. I can get into a lot on that, but I appreciate what the city has done thus far for seniors, but there's a lot more opportunity that can happen. I can give you one is specifically in the area of District 5, the fire station on Buffington Road is closing in a few years. At the time that the new fire training center opens up. And there is some discussion going on now with the council person, Council Bell, that instead of tearing that building down to repurpose it to become a senior center, which right now there is no senior center at all in the city of South Fulton. If seniors want to go somewhere for assistance or socialization or whatever it is they want to do, they have to leave the city of South Fulton to go to either a QLS located in East Point or Atlanta or College Park or Fairburn, but outside of the city. We now have an opportunity coming up to where there can be a place right here in our city. This fire station is conveniently located where District 5 seniors and District 7 seniors can participate in services and entertainment, special projects, and it can even be a community center that can serve youth and also be a meeting space. We're not thinking with imagination when we're not utilizing the spaces that we already own and reimagining them to better serve our community? I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
All right, you said a lot. So a couple things. First, I got to start with a pushback. We actually do have a senior center in our QLS is actually in the city of South Fulton. I know that because it was founded by members of my family's church, St. Mark AME, and they just celebrated their 40th anniversary. We also have senior housing that we just built on 138 that Councilman Mark Baker, who is also running for mayor, he really spearheaded that project and helped bring that to fruition. So we are thinking about ways to do that, working with existing nonprofits and corporations that build senior housing. When I was a councilman, I created the first downtown development authority for South Fulton, which was vetoed by council, but we had a $50 million deal on the table for senior housing on Old National. It was voted down because of politics, right? But I do think that we can look at repurposing some facilities. I'm not certain that fire station would be the best facility. A lot of these fire stations were built in the 60s and 70s that we inherited from Fulton County. They have issues of asbestos. We're not just tearing down that fire station, we are relocating it. We are, in the same way that we're doing with our police beat study, we've done a study of fire stations and making sure that we have them in the right places to improve our response time. That is something that we're doing in conjunction with building this 911 center, our first 911 center for the city. I do think that it's something that we can look into, but I want to be honest with you. Family and senior and children's services, these are all things that are done by the county. We have a $425 million budget this year. The county has $1 billion budget, right? They have been given money from the federal government and they have money that is allocated for seniors. What we need to do is put more pressure on our county commissioners.
I agree with that.
To create those services. I will tell you that right now, there are 7 members of the county commission. Not one of them lives in South Fulton County. Not one of them. There are 2 that live in Atlanta, and there are 4 that live in North Fulton. There is not a single county commissioner that lives. Somehow, this county commission drew county commission districts that did not make sure that we had a South Fulton County commissioner. There are 2 county commission districts that are exclusive to North Fulton County. There are 0 county commission districts that are exclusive to South Fulton County. And so those are the kinds of issues of equity and political education that I've talked about for years, and it's up for the voters to fix what is wrong, both with our county commission and our city council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And our next question is going to come from Patricia, and then we will go to Quasar Alexander. Ms. Patricia, if you can unmute yourself, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
We hear you.
Hi. Mayor Khalid, this is Patricia. I've watched all the mayoral debates. I've been on every the South Fulton Coalition to understand, learn the candidates that are running for mayor, and just to learn the other candidates that are running for the other district. And I'm that person that really likes to listen to what people say to get a good idea of where they're coming from. And my question to you is, or I'm looking for a response. One of the mayoral candidates, you spoke of, you said that you wasn't sure if you wanted to be mayor and you didn't want to be mayor, or you didn't want to be mayor the first go round and you're not sure if you want to be mayor this time. And that threw a lot of people. It definitely threw me. And I know you saw my posts on Facebook because I was really bothered by that. So the question is, and you may have answered it. With that being said, why do you want to be mayor? The second question is the second mayoral debate that you spoke at. You mentioned a proverb or a scripture in the Bible, and it really insulted a lot of women. Basically, something to the likes of, "It's better that a man be on the roof and have a bickering wife inside the house," something like that. And that really offended a lot of people, or a lot of women. And if you feel that way about the fact that being in your position as mayor and having a council of potentially all women, or at least 95% women, what makes you think that your situation may be any different if your perception is set in that tone? Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to answer your first question. What really drives me to run for mayor is a sense of duty, right? What I said is not that I didn't know if I wanted to run for mayor. It is a very hard job. I'm paid about $40,000 a year. I do this full time, right? I do this full time. This is my only job, and I made a commitment that this would be my only job. When I was a councilman, when I was making $13,000 a year, I was on food stamps so that I could do this full time as my only job. I am concerned about the direction that our city can go in if we do not have a strong moral compass towards social justice and equity, right? What really influenced me, I was so tired of the bickering and the fighting. And the proverb says that it's better for a man to sleep on the roof of his house than to sleep under that roof with a quarrelsome wife. I do not believe that all women are quarrelsome. I know some amazing women. I don't quarrel with our city manager. She is brilliant and amazing, and we talk nearly every day. There are women on council that I no longer quarrel with, right? So I don't believe that it is inherent. I will say that this council has a lot of yin and could use a little yang. I will say that. I do believe if we can have a courageous conversation. I tell people all the time, I've said it in every debate and in every forum, pull up any City of South Fulton council meeting. They're all on YouTube, City of South Fulton. Find the point in the meeting where I am talking. I don't talk a lot, but find a point in the meeting where I speak. See if what I am saying makes sense. And then see how members of council respond. People are cursing under mic, on hot mics. They're rolling their necks. They're being very disrespectful in a way. I'm going to say it like this. As a man, right, talking to another man, there is only a certain level of disrespect that will happen in our communication. Because as men, we know how quickly things can escalate towards physical violence, right? And being from where I'm from on Old Nat, there's not going to be too much talking, right? And so when we communicate with one another, there is a respect level that is there. I have found and am finding on this council, some women can be very disrespectful with their words, right? And you would think that it wouldn't happen in a council meeting because there's a level of professionalism that I would hope that we all have. We do not all have that level of professionalism. I do think that having more men on council would bring a balance. This may cost me the election, but all I can do is be honest. Having more men on council may bring a balance back to council that existed when we had about a half and half measure of men and women on council. I was so tired of the bickering. I did decide, and I was so tired of my name being dragged personally, right? I'm going to stay on topic. I was so tired of that, right? I was so tired of us majoring in the minors and making mountains out of molehills about things that every mayor in every city was doing. Every mayor was traveling, but somehow my travel became criminal. Every mayor renovates their office. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars renovating our entire city hall, but somehow the renovation of my office, which was really done to make it more interactive with the public, somehow that was criminalized. I was so tired of it, I decided not to run. I didn't go to our 2026 budget retreat. In the summer, we make a new budget. It starts every October. In the summer, we have a retreat where we plan out that budget. I'm going to talk about race again. We had a financial advisor, a white man, who came and said, y'all have to eliminate your millage rate cap, the cap on your property taxes. You have to eliminate it in order to get the $100 million loan or the $100 million in bonds to finance your 911 center and your police and fire headquarters. You have to eliminate it. We paid that man $1 million. Part of the reason that I talk about us being the blackest city in America, because part of the psychosis that Black people have is that we think that white people's ice is colder. And because this man told us that, council was ready to do it. You can see it in the newsletters of council members. We were all set to eliminate our millage rate cap. I came, the city manager and I, who is a Black woman from the Caribbean, I might add, have such a good relationship. She came to me and said, what do you think about this? I said, if y'all are going to do this, we really need to workshop this. And we really need to make sure that we're talking about it talking about it in the right way. If y'all want to do it, I wasn't planning to be here in 2026, but we need to make sure that we're rolling it out, that we have marketing materials, that we explain that eliminating the millage rate cap isn't raising property taxes. So part of what I did in this office renovation is that I created a focus group room. We put the city manager in another room. She watched on camera as I rolled out this plan. The residents weren't having it. The idea to raise the cap instead of eliminating the cap actually came from that focus group. But then we took it to a town hall and the residents still weren't having it. And I said, I'm not going to sign a resolution, or I will veto any resolution that is passed eliminating the cap because so many people have a problem with it.
Yeah, we got another question for you too.
I got you, but I really, this is important that I finish this.
I got you.
Council was ready to raise the cap. We weren't going to eliminate it anymore. We negotiated to a point, we were able to agree that eliminating it was probably not a good idea. We were going to raise the cap, but I said, we can't even do that because the residents don't want it. We went back to the bank. It turns out not only did we not have to raise the cap, we didn't have to touch the cap to get this $100 million. That financial advisor still got $1 million for his advice. But we didn't have to raise the cap. And I realized in that moment, had I not been there, engaging the public and saying and allowing myself to be driven by the citizens and to have the citizens, as much as I wanted these buildings, as much as everybody wanted a 911 center and all of these things, and I would have loved to be able to say, I got this done as the mayor, the citizens weren't ready and they didn't want it. If we didn't have a leader in position that was willing to allow the citizens to dictate how fast we move and what we move on, we might have raised the cap. We might have eliminated the cap. And that is what made me decide to run for mayor again, is because I really believe in citizen-driven government, and I believe that I am unique amongst all of the candidates to really say, come hell or high water, whatever the citizens decide is what we are going to do.
And thank you for that answer. Thank you very much, Mayor.
All right, and before we go to Quasar, Mayor, I just wanted to know how long did the city council know that this millage rate cap was going to be an issue? Did I hear you say it was in a previous budget retreat?
It was in our the idea came in our 2026 budget retreat, which happened in June of 2025. So, the idea was first proposed and council began making plans. I will say before that we'd already planned to set up a public facilities authority, but we began to put the machinery in place to do that in the summer of 2025. But before we actually made any public votes, we made the decision to have these like town halls. And I believe that focus group was influential in that.
Thank you so much. Quasar Alexander, you have the floor.
How you doing tonight, Mr. Mayor?
How you doing, Mr. Alexander?
I'm doing pretty good. Keeping along the subject that we're talking about, I have a two-part question. One part of the question is more about accountability, which is about the past and kind of the present, and the other part of my question is going to be a little bit about the future, which is the vision, right? So, my first question: the infighting over the last years has often overshadowed the good work that you've done. But when you look back, what do you think that you handled well? And what do you take responsibility for doing differently?
I'm going to say first, we got to stay off the news. And when I say stay off the news, I try not to go to the news, right? I started out, going to the news. I went to the news 3 years ago and said that we had this corrupt police chief, and there was corruption in our police department. Not that all of our officers were corrupt, but we had corruption in our police department. Now, 3 years, 3 investigations later, council is finally ready to put the chief on paid administrative leave. He's getting $18,000 a month on paid leave. So but I realized that sort of language and going to the media in that way was not necessarily helpful. And so through all of the drama of this past year, you don't see me giving a lot of interviews to the media, because one of the things that I realize is that they are not here to educate residents. They're here to keep stirring the pot to get you clicking on their news stories and watching their news. You cannot learn what happened in a 6-hour council meeting in a 60-second news story. They're not going to give you the whole story, and they're not interested in that. So that is some of the things that I've done differently, and that I am changing. I think that some of the things that we really have done well, a lot of people don't know this, but at our first Courageous Conversation time, at our first retreat, as badly as I have been talked to in public, it is 3 times worse in private. I can tell you that individual council women have almost come to blows on several occasions. It was so bad, I told our first city manager, I will never attend another council retreat without a therapist present. Every one of our city council retreats that we've been on, we've had a therapist. For the past 2 years almost, we've had this incredible therapist, Dr. David Hooker. He has done conflict resolution in Rwanda, in Bosnia, in the Sudan, in these countries that are at war. He has a PhD in psychology, a JD in law, and he's worked for the Attorney General of the state of Georgia, and a Master's of Divinity from Candler School of Theology. He has done so much to improve council relations. In addition to working with us at our retreats, he's come into our executive sessions. He's hosted one-on-ones between different council people, between staff and council people. And so some of the improved relations that you see amongst me and other council members are directly attributable to his interventions with us, and even the work that I've done with him individually to learn how to be a better mayor. And so I think that mental health is another thing that we don't talk about enough in our community, and that we are shy to access. And that has been one of the big innovations that I think has improved our council relations, though you may not always see it in the heat of these election years. I want to say one of the things that I would do, that I would try to do differently. Again, I don't have a lot of power as mayor, but I will be making, if you text news to 55444, you'll get my newsletters. I'm going to be rolling out a newsletter about charter changes that I believe need to be made. One of them I will give you a preview of tonight is that we need to move to an election schedule that is once every 4 years. In the city of Atlanta, all mayor and council are up at the same time. They have one election every 4 years. Never in my 50 years of living have I seen a majority of city council be changed out. The idea is that we have these alternating election years so that we don't have too much disruption on council, and that an entire mayor and council aren't voted out. I don't know in the history of Atlanta that they have ever voted out an entire mayor and council. But doing it once every 4 years means that a lot of the shenanigans that we've seen this year, I'm going to tell you, you're going to see them in 2 more years, because in 2 more, every other year we have a council election. So every other year, if you look at 2024, we had a relatively calm year, where our council meetings were ending at 9 o'clock, council was getting along. But every election year, people start cutting the monkey, and we have an election every other year in the city. So that is an innovation that I would be asking for the citizens to vote on. Every charter change that I am proposing, I believe the citizens should get to weigh in on.
Thank you for that, Mayor. And the second part of that question is about the future. So, a lot of mayors, the other day, a former Mayor Edwards had some things to say about some of his challenges, right? So every mayor faces some defining challenges. And like, for example, there were tornadoes, I heard him say the other day, and then they went through COVID. So every administration might have some of those challenges. What's been your biggest challenge? And what lessons are you going to take into the second term, if you get the second term, which is the vision about the future?
I think one of my biggest challenges has been communicating with residents, and having a media presence that outpaces not only the negative media, but is also more interactive with the public. Again, the charter says that the mayor is the spokesperson of the city, but the communications department does not report to the mayor, right? And so sometimes we have, the police chief will be on the news saying one thing, and the city manager didn't even know he was going to do a press conference, and then the public affairs department is putting out stuff that the council hasn't seen, and then I'm saying things. If we could speak with one voice, I think that would be really great. And I think that having the communications department, the mayor, and I'm saying this whether I'm mayor or not, the mayor is the only person in the city that everyone gets to vote on.
That's right.
Go to everyone and get thousands of votes from across the city. So the mayor has to have that pulse on what is priority for residents. Being able to drive our communications is something that I really hope that I can do more in the next term.
Great answer, man. Great answer. We have any more questions? Because if not,
we have 3 more people. So the next one is iPhone Kobi. Please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Hey, how you doing, Mayor? I have a question. I would like to know, what is the difference between the prior city manager and our current city manager? I always hear you say that the current city manager is, you guys always brag on her that, she's doing such an amazing job and everything. I was just curious to know, because I actually used to work for the city, and I started working there during your term, and I was just curious, what is the difference? Because
I
being an employee, I noticed that you guys gave this current city manager a lot more authority than the former city manager, meaning that, this current city manager, you guys, let her hire as many people as she wants to hire. Where before we was understaffed, now, you guys let her hire, just as many people as she wants to, and she gets this amazing raise. And I'm just so curious about that because I work closely with her, and I was just curious to know what was so
well,
amazing about her. What is so
I
amazing about her?
there are a lot of amazing things about Sharon Sudan. Um, she was just more experienced. Our previous mayor appointed city managers who had never been city managers before. There was like 15 months where he was the city manager because we didn't have a city manager. The last city manager before Ms. Subadan did have experience, and I think that she was a good city manager. She was harassed, threatened, and intimidated by council. Our current city manager goes through that as well. Council members will walk into her office saying, I've got 4 votes to fire you if you don't do this or you don't do that. Sharon Subadan has a lot of courage. She has told me no many times. She's told other council people no many times, and I think that she just has experience that most of our previous city managers lacked, and a courage that all of our city managers, previous city managers lacked. She's not afraid. She had an amazing business as a consultant before she started part-time. She came to me, I came to her and I said, council really likes you. You're working part-time. What do you need to stay here? She listed her salary, and I got council to approve that unanimously. It is in line with other cities our size. Stonecrest city manager, I think, makes around $280,000. Sandy Springs city manager makes around $300,000 when you load in all of their fringe benefits. This city manager does not take the benefits. So it's a comparable salary. The other thing, though, I think that happened is it's actually an unintended consequence of our bickering. And that is as people who've been following the city know, the moment that I was elected, before I was even sworn in, council began to change the charter to weaken the authority of the mayor. They changed the charter a half a dozen times in the past 4 years. Very often, when they took power away from the mayor, they gave it to themselves, but very often they gave it to the city manager. So the city manager's authority to negotiate contracts went from 25,000 to 100,000. She can negotiate contracts for $100,000. And so a lot of power and authority that they gave to the city manager. Some of it was because she was just doing a wonderful job. Some of it was to disempower the mayor. I do think that there is an imbalance now. It is concerning to me that the highest paid, most powerful person in our city was elected by no one, right? And so when I'll give you an example. There are times when it's been amazing. I'm going to use the police as an example of a time when it's been amazing and when it's been horrible. We knew 3 years ago that the police chief was bullying staff, or at least I knew it because I was talking to rank and file officers. The world knew it after the Smyrna report was released and WSB began to do these news stories about asset forfeiture and confiscations and all of these things. Even though our police chief 3 years ago went on the news and said that for 2 years he had violated state law by not reporting all of the asset forfeitures and asset confiscations that the City of South Fulton police were doing, which was required by law. He was not fired. He was not reprimanded. You know, I don't know, maybe he was counseled, but he had no write-up or reprimand, and he was not fired. As a mayor, I would have fired him. The city manager was bullied. This is documented. You can go on my website and my newsletters. You can see it on the news. You could pull up news stories about it. She told the council that she was being bullied, and she wasn't fired. She resigned in lieu of termination. Council members came to that city manager and said, "We will drag your name in the media the same way that they have dragged mine." And the city manager decided, for the sake of her career and her reputation, because she is still a young woman, she decided to resign. If I were mayor and I were able to fire that police chief, as you can see, council will drag my name, and I will continue being mayor, right? And I will push back. And when the new city manager came in, courageous conversation time, I told her about all of those things. She said, that didn't happen on my watch. I can't fire the chief for something that happened before I got here. So it was years before he ever came up under investigation and is now on this $18,000 a month leave. I will say that now that the investigation is finally happening, because the city manager has this $100,000 contracting authority, she was able to bring in Dr. Cedric Alexander, who actually worked in Minneapolis after the murder of George Floyd, to reform that police department. And so she was able to come in and do that because we had given her that level of authority. And we have now, as council, approved that contract for an extended period of time. So I hope that answers.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you so much for that explanation. We're gonna go next to Condia Perry. Ms. Perry, please unmute yourself. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and good evening, Mayor Kobi. I'm going to ask you a question that I've not asked any other mayoral candidates, because I really think I'm not gonna say you're the best person to answer it, but I will say that I saved this question for you. Many know that you once lived in Camelot, and I am an owner and resident. I've lived in Camelot since 2012. And so you've experienced firsthand some of the things that have happened in Camelot. So my question to you, and there's well, I'll just jump into it. So as you know, as everyone knows, Camelot has long been one of South Fulton's most challenged and yet promising communities. And I say that because we have a lot of investors that see the promise greatness or where Camelot could be. We've even had city officials say, you know, what it could be. We all know what it used to be, and I know you're limited with your power as mayor, but what specific steps would you take as mayor to ensure the city of South Fulton invests and revitalizes Camelot? And I'm not talking about just through enforcement, but through real partnerships with residents and property owners.
So for those of you all who don't know, Candia is the reason that I actually moved to Camelot. When I was running for mayor in 2021, I had family members that lived in Camelot and Biscayne, and I got called there. It wasn't even my council district, and it was in bad shape then. And I said, Camelot needs to be torn down. And Candia challenged me. She said, you really need to live there, and all of the buildings aren't bad. You really need to experience it for yourself. You can't let one or two bad buildings, guide your decision. And I said, in a moment of courageous conversation, I said, if I'm mayor, I will move there and live there for at least 6 months before I make a decision about Camelot. I lived there for 9 months. I moved out, not because of the rodents crawling in my walls, not for the murders. Only 2 people were found dead there when I was mayor. I mean, when I lived there. After I moved out, the homicide rate tripled. I left because there was black mold in my building. Nearly all of the buildings in Camelot have mold in their basements, either from flooding or just being left blighted and abandoned and unused. And Camelot is constructed in a way that we no longer build condominiums, but they share walls, they share stairwells, and they share HVAC systems. So when the weather began to get cold and I began to have sinus issues, I went to my doctor and they were like, you have to move out of this place. It is unhealthy. I am going to tell you publicly, as I have told you privately, I am not sure that Camelot can be saved. I've tried to be as honest about that as possible to give every resident of Camelot notice. First off, I want to give all of the people that are buying into Camelot, because people like Tabitha Rowe, who was the HOA president for many years, and we finally got arrested because she was stealing from the organization and she was stealing from the residents in the HOA. They were telling people, you should buy here because the mayor has moved here and the city is going to pour all of this money into Camelot and fix it up, and it's a great investment property. The city is not going to pour a bunch of money into Camelot because the homes are individually owned. They're individually owned, and we cannot give money to individual residents. This goes back to Calvin's point. I wish that we had a housing authority. I wish that we could come in and build units that the city owned and provide affordable housing. I definitely believe that as the blighted properties in Camelot are being torn down, that we make sure that our seniors and that the children in Camelot, the least of these, are taken care of, and that we make sure that they are relocated and they're able to find housing elsewhere. But the state of Camelot's buildings is in such disrepair that it will cost tens of millions of dollars to pay the water bill, to fix the infrastructure, to rebuild the buildings. The HOA does not have the money and the city cannot give it to you. So if an angel investor comes and they're able to fix up Camelot, then they have my full support. But it doesn't, people have been talking about this for decades. Camelot is getting worse. And I think that we just have to be honest with residents about where we are with the state of that, with the state of that property. I will say that in terms of blighted property, many of you may know that I created a blighted property fund as a city council member. We had no fund. The city had set aside no money to tear down blighted properties. The county had not set aside money to do that either. When we were the county, the city didn't have it. The city didn't have any money set aside to put speed bumps in neighborhoods. I created those funds. The blighted property fund now has over $1 million in it. The speed bump fund now has over $1 million in it. And we're able to tear down these large buildings that cost it's going to cost $100,000 to even tear down the buildings that have burned. $100,000 or more per building. That is going to go on the HOA's tab. You've got to pay that off, right? And so, or else it just gets written off by the city if the HOA can't pay it off. And so we just got to be. I'm always going to be honest with you, publicly and privately, about the prospects for Camelot.
Hello, Mayor. We're at 8:25. I want to make sure that you're going to be able to stay past 8:30 since there's more questions. Do you have a hard stop anywhere?
I will, until all the questions are answered.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you for that. So the next question comes from Yashina. Yashina, if you can unmute yourself, you have the floor, and then we'll go to Sam Bowen.
All right, good evening, everyone. As always, thank you, Rashad and Mr. Run, for having this platform. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Just a I want to address one of the comments in the chat. And I think everybody has been respectful on all the ones that I've been on. And still tonight we are. It's just only reason I said, depending on what we say, just make sure that it's factual. If there's anything discrediting someone's character, that's the only thing. Because we don't want to, if we don't know factually what happened, just don't mention it. But keep the comments positive. However, my only question to you, Mayor, and I'll ask this because I asked this last night, is if you continue to be, or if you win re-election, would you consider with new council in, if you do receive new council members, would you rehire those who were mistreated, wrongfully fired, or quit due to the bullying? That is my first question. And then my second question to you, well, it's not really a question. It is, I agree with you. I do think we need to have only one election because I don't think individuals understand it costs thousands of dollars to have every time we have an election. It costs us money through the county, and we pay for that through taxes.
I would, I don't have the power to hire people back, right? We have a city manager form of government. All 15 or 17 of our departments, all the department heads and all of their employees report to our city manager. I would strongly encourage her to allow those people who were fired without just cause or who left because of bullying and intimidation to be rehired. I do think, though, in terms of, I'm going to give another preview of charter changes, I believe that the mayor should be able to hire and fire department heads. Shouldn't be subject to council. It shouldn't be, I think it is a power that has to be treated with care. But if someone is running for mayor and they're selling you a vision of the city and they're not allowed to appoint anybody to carry out that vision, that is a problem. One of the things that I did, the city manager has a contract. That contract ends in March of 2026. The mayor gets to appoint the manager, the clerk, and the city attorney. The city attorney is an interim. I had the power to appoint her as permanent city attorney. I chose to make her interim. She accepted the interim because she wasn't sure. She had seen what was going on with council and she wasn't sure that she wanted to be permanent. So the next mayor is going to get to appoint a city manager and a city attorney. I wasn't allowed to do either of those things. I was stuck with the city manager that someone else had chosen. I was stuck with an attorney who was horrible, who didn't read contracts, which is why we've lost all of this money on in our sanitation, and we probably will be raising rates. The only reason we didn't raise them this year is because it's an election year. And so I think that it's important that the mayor be empowered to hire and fire department heads. I think that would bring more respect to the mayor's office. Right now, the council can ignore the mayor, the department heads can ignore the mayor because the mayor doesn't really, have power. They just have influence through the residents. And it's hard for the residents to even have influence because you can't go to the meetings and talk. But yes, to answer your question, I would strongly encourage those things.
And I thank you for that answer. And the last thing I'll say is I know a lot of people ask about the salary for the city manager. And I'll just say, yes, we do have to pay individuals their worth. But I also think we do have to be careful as a new city to pay people at the highest. And then also on top of that, grant them more money. Let's let them do the work first. And I think I've said that a night before, is that it's like we have a running tab, but nobody's paid the bill. And people are just running the tab up and the citizens are paying for it. So I agree that the city manager, true, maybe the average is 280, but let's get her to come in at least 200 and let's see what her worth is. How can she correct some of the things that we're doing and do it on increments? We can't be afraid to do that. You can pay people in increments. We're investing in you, you invest in us. We've got to be more responsible with our money. We tell that to individuals, and as a city, we have to do that as a city. Not fussing with you, Mayor Kobi. You know I love you. So I say that with love, and I wish you the best on the campaign trail. That is all I have to say. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. I will say, I will push back a little bit and say that, we did bring in Ms. Subadan as an interim at 225 before giving her the $300,000. And I will say for the record, I don't, every time I've spoken about her publicly, I have always praised her. She is worth every penny that we pay her. 261 miles of road paved, 400 acres of land purchased. She's bringing our city into compliance with our financial audits, and she has worked with our financial advisor and our council to get $100 million without touching our property taxes for our city's first 911 center, our city's first police headquarters, our fire and EMS training center, and part of that land we purchased is land for a permanent city hall. She's done an amazing job.
Let me ask you on that point. I hate to butt in here, but you're saying that she's great. I was just on last night listening to another candidate that gave the total opposite story. We're understaffed. Employee atmosphere that's kind of off the chain. We can't hold on to any employees. We got council people interfering with operations. But you're saying that she's great. Let's square up. Who's right in this situation? Because yesterday it was a total 180.
So I'm going to take those point by point. We are building a 100 square mile city from scratch. 8 years ago, we had one employee, the clerk that we swore in, that we hired the night before so that he could swear us all. We could record our first meeting. We're 8 years old. If anybody knows that's built a business, the first 10 years of the business, you're struggling. You can't hire all the staff that you'd like to have. You can't do all the things that you'd like to do. You can't get it all done. So that is not on her. The turnover in staff. Now, I will say this. We were supposed to, when we did our performance reviews for the city manager, and she has above average, she's done above average or excellent on her performance reviews over the past couple of years. We did one full one and we did a partial one when she had just come in. Other people, like our attorney, had not. One of the reason that he quit, remember, I fired him, the council hired him back, and then he ended up quitting, is because he had been put on a performance improvement plan. And he quit right before he had to come in for that performance improvement plan review. But our staff is harassed and bullied and intimidated by members of council. You've seen that at council meetings. You've seen not the city manager, but the council, not all of the council, but some council members berate city staff, right? You've seen them talk down the same way they talk down to me. They talk down to the city manager, they talk down to staff. One of the things that was supposed to happen when we did this last performance review this summer, this fall, we were supposed to do an employee satisfaction survey. And there were questions on that survey I made sure that were there that asked about the city manager's interaction with staff and the council's interaction with staff, because I wanted to know what our staff thought of us. It was going to be an anonymous survey of our 800 employees. It hasn't been done yet. And I will tell you, it's not because of me. I pushed for us to do it. I said, we need to do it in an election year, and we need to do it not in an election year, so that we would have quantitative evidence of how the drama of election years affects the healthy work environment of our staff. Council opted not to do it. We're not going to have it until after the election is over. Hopefully, the staff will still be honest in their responses. But that is something that I have been pushing for years, and it is coming in 2026. I don't think it's the city manager. Again, I mean, that's my view, but we don't have the data from staff to really know for certain. But in terms of what we measure her performance on is in every retreat, we say these are the priorities for the city, right? I came in saying I want us to purchase land. The council came in saying we want some of these construction projects, some of these road paving, some of these traffic circles, some of these buildings and facilities. We want to see this stuff come online that's been stalled for years. She has completed all of the things that we have asked her to do, so that by those metrics, I think she's done a great job.
All right, thank you for that. And Sam, before I come to you, I want to go back to you, Mayor Kobi. If my memory serves me correctly, at the start of your term as mayor, you made this comment about there should be surveys on the performance of the city council. Do you still believe that there should be those surveys on the city council as well?
100%. We are employees. It's funny. Sometimes we're not employees when we don't want to be, and then sometimes we're employees when we want to be, right? When we want to get the healthcare benefits, because one of the benefits we all get as council is that we all get health insurance that we don't have to pay for. It's not deducted from our check, right? But then when I wanted tuition reimbursement insurance, we were told we're not really employees. When I wanted us to be evaluated, council were like, well, we're not really employees. Questions about council will be in, well, I hope they will be. We finalized an employee satisfaction survey. We didn't put it out, but questions about council and about how we interact with staff are in that survey, and it will be open to open records requests. So I have every confidence, Mr. Snellings, that when we do those surveys, you will make sure that the public sees all of the answers.
Absolutely. Mr. Sam Bowen, you have the floor.
Well, that's a nice long wait, but thank you for that, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you for doing this, and good evening, everyone. So I'll just start off by saying that I personally know the mayor before he was the mayor. So this question is a little bit more, it's two parts, and it's a little bit more personal. So what have you learned from the personal attacks that you have had to endure that you believe would make you a better mayor if you were to win a second term? That's the first question. Then I'll let you answer that, and I'll ask the second question.
That is simple. That is simple. I say this to my staff all the time. I say it to the city manager. I have these Mayor Mondays when everybody can come in and get 20 minutes. 90% of this job is listening. Every good idea that I've ever had as mayor, from the speed bump fund to the blighted property fund, to not doing the millage rate cap, to spending more time on the future land use map, to making sure that everybody's in the room and that we all get education before we start the process. All of those came from listening. None of those were my ideas. They came from citizens, they came from staff. 90% of this job is listening.
Okay. And my second question is, and I apologize that this was asked before, what's your thoughts on using the additional funds or tax revenue we'll get from the data centers that want to locate within our city boundaries to either remove or reduce a city service costs such as sanitation? Instead of it going up next year, it's actually the tax revenue is projected that comes in is used towards paying for that instead of the residents having to pay for it. And that'd be the trade-off or the benefit the community would get for having this data center located close to our residents.
90% of this job is listening. That is an amazing idea. I will be pushing that forward for as long as I'm in that seat. I think that that's a great idea. I'm hoping, I am going to be pushing for a moratorium on data centers and on a lot of things in planning and zoning until we all agree on the future land use map for our city, right? And there are a lot of things that need to be changed. But for the data centers that have been approved and that revenue that is coming in, I think that is a great idea. There's a lot of amazing groups that are working. SAGA, the Environmental Justice Coalition, the Southside Environmental Justice Coalition is one. Juan Smith, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of their organization. And Wanda, she works at Black Voters Matter, but there's another incredible organization that's doing work around data centers and community benefits agreements, and making sure that not only do we make community benefits agreements with data centers, but that we put systems and people in place to monitor that those community benefits agreements are being adhered to. But just making sure that the money we get is spent on saving residents' tax dollars, that's an easy one. That's one you all can monitor yourself. So I love that.
Yep, thank you for that. And I totally agree with the community benefits agreement. I spent some time researching it, and I see how other states are using it for the residents. Yes, I agree with a lot of stuff I see coming across the wire, that there's not a lot of benefits to having a data center next to you. But while we can't necessarily stop the ones that have already been approved, we should be able to get some financial benefit from the hardship that we will endure going forward. So thank you for that, sir.
Definitely.
All right, our next question comes from Crystal. Crystal, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Hey, good evening, everyone, Mayor, everybody. I received an email about a few hours ago from the mayor, and the first, the headline stated unbossed, citizen-driven development. Could you explain that?
Yes. Is it possible for me to share my screen? I would really like to share my screen.
Yes, you may.
I think that I don't see the option here. I may need to like open this up in Zoom because it's on my web browser now.
Try it again, Mayor. Try to share it.
Yeah, I don't have the option on my screen. I think it's because I'm in a web-based version of this and not in the Zoom app. But I have not taken any money from developers ever on any of my campaigns. This is my third campaign. So that's what I mean by unbought, right? I don't allow the hope of future financial gain to influence my decision making. Unbossed means that like I won't be bullied by council, right? Or you know, very often it's funny. Members of council vacillate between being afraid of lawsuits and being unafraid of lawsuits, right? When it's to their advantage, they'll say in council meetings, "Oh, talking like that's gonna get us sued," or if we don't say yes to this, then we're gonna get sued, right? I'm always gonna do what's right for the people. We have a $425 million budget. If we get a lawsuit, we got money for lawyers. We can lawyer up. So that's what I mean. And in terms of citizen-driven development, two examples are I have vetoed a warehouse in District 7 for a council person that's not up for election, and I vetoed this massive apartment development in District 2 for a council person that is running to unseat me as mayor, right? So it's equal opportunity. You know, whether you're for me or against me, if the people don't want it, I'm going to say no. The people said that they didn't want the sanitation bill to be put on their property taxes. They thought that we were rushing too fast into creating this sanitation thing. So I vetoed that, right? A veto isn't a no, it's a not yet. It's a let's slow down, talk about this some more, go through this process some more, have some more conversation, and get some more citizen input. And so that's what unbossed, citizen-driven development means to me.
So are you stating that that council members are being, that developers are they paying council members to push their projects?
Let me say, I have seen no evidence of that, but every few months, we have to file what's called a campaign contribution disclosure report. It lists everybody that has given us money over $100. Anybody that's given us over $100, we're supposed to put it on that report. There are no developers or attorneys for developers or representatives for developers or realtors or real estate agents. You won't find any of those on my campaign contribution disclosure reports. Because I got started so late, you actually won't even find that many contributions. So please, this is my, if you like what I'm saying, please go to kobicares.com and make a donation, because this is a citizen-driven campaign. But you can file open records requests with the city to see who is donating to whom. You can go on social media if there are photos of people with developers or people speaking at council members' fundraising events. You won't find that. You won't find that. You won't find that for me. So I can't say what other people are doing. I can only say that I'm not doing it.
Thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Now we're gonna go to Condia, and then we'll go to Mel Keaton. Condia, you have the floor.
Okay, Mayor, I don't know if this is a fair question to ask, but I heard this question asked on another forum, and I can't remember. Someone I think had to tweak it. But if you make it into the runoff, who do you think will be there with you, or who would you like to see there with you?
Well, my prayer is that you all make the right decision the first time around.
Oh, so there won't be a runoff.
And there won't be a runoff.
Oh, okay. Okay, I guess.
I don't know, Miss Colbert Bradford has told you, that's just more money we got to spend, right?
Right, that's true.
To hold runoff. So y'all got to take time off work and go vote again. So hopefully we won't have a runoff.
Right, and I do hope that if you do make it in, if nothing else you said tonight resonated, I really like the idea of one vote per year. I mean, one vote, not per year, but one vote for the city. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Keaton, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking me, Mr. Mayor. So I have a question. I noticed that for the last couple of years that we do the staff, we have some really hard working staff on some really good projects that don't get the credit that they need or the credit that they deserve on the things and the accomplishments that they have made throughout the years on any particular thing, whether it be a park or a roundabout, a roadway, or a sidewalk, or anything like that. And I noticed that a lot of the council members are taking the credit, or they want to be perceived as taking the credit as to the person that or the personnel that has made this whatever it is happen. And I noticed that a lot of times it's everything that goes on it seems like it's a campaign. The face is on every flyer, no matter what. It can just be shredding paper. The face is on the flyer. Anything. What do you see as the best resolution to stop this behavior moving forward, so we can kind of concentrate and let the main thing be the main thing, and let the people that do the work and the staff earn their keep and get the credit that they deserve and be recognized?
Well, I think I will. I'm going to say two things. One, I think I'm going. There's a ribbon cutting for a fire station tomorrow, right? I'd like to think that all of us mayor and council, like I'm not going to just bash our council all the time, right? Like all of us, mayor and council, always try to be careful to give our staff credit for the hard work they do. I opened my State of the City address. I just put a link to it in the group chat. I opened my State of the City address thanking the city manager and all of our staff, right? And we do have some incredibly hardworking staff. One of the things I think that you're talking about, though, is this campaigning through election season. I'm hold 1 second. So I know you all said, we're not supposed to talk about other candidates, but I'm going to take a minute to talk about a candidate. There is a district, the District 2 candidate who's running against me as mayor has put this mailer out, right? I think all of you have probably received it. She has used taxpayer funds that are supposed to be for District 2 residents to mail this across the entire city, right? Even as they have frozen my account, people are using their campaign, they're using their city council accounts to campaign on. We've gone from, I think the first time I talked about the number of events that we had in our city, it was nearly 200. It's now over 300, right? That's what these are. These are campaign events. They're excuses to campaign. One of the things that I think that we need to do is what we've been talking about, which is electing all of mayor and council at the same time. You're going to have a little bit of foolishness every campaign season. That is the nature of politics. I have probably done it as well. But doing it once every 4 years instead of every other year is going to save taxpayers money. It's going to save headaches from our staff. Our staff is overwhelmed by the number of events that we now have. At our next count, one of the things that I tried to do as mayor is create a calendar at the beginning of the year where we put all of our events on the calendar. One of the things that I have tried to do in a retreat is I looked at the holidays of the year. There are probably 7 major holidays in a year, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas, I'm going to miss them if I try to name them all, right? But there are probably about 7 major holidays: the city's anniversary, Labor Day, back to school. And I said, let's do one event per holiday. Each council district, each of you as council members, pick it. You will notice that I don't actually have that many events. Some of it is because my budget is frozen, but honestly, I only do the State of the City and the film festival every year, which is really about promoting the film industry in our city. I just go to everybody else's events, because I can just do that, right? But I said, let's do one event per holiday. We have 5 book bag drives and 5 turkey giveaways. And we had 2 Christmas tree lightings last year, even though we had just renovated City Hall, right? And on plans to do the same this year. So I think having the one in every 4 years would be one thing. Having a council that will agree to set a calendar at the beginning of the year and not add new events every council meeting that we have. And you'll see when we have these new council, at this council meeting, someone will probably add events, and I will pull up on the screen the number of events that we have, and it's crazy. So I think that longer, no shorter, that's just something that we can do.
All right, Mayor, can you clarify? There's a question in the chat about, can you just explain what you mean when you say your budget is frozen?
So when city council, when members, so now I'm just gonna I'm gonna give you the raw and the real, right? Some council members came up with this little plan, right? Marvin Arrington is running to be chair of the Fulton County Commission. Helen Willis, District 3, has announced that she's going to run for Fulton County chair, and they put Carm up to run as the county as mayor of South Fulton. So I guess they have this plan that they're going to run Fulton County together. This team. They know that they cannot beat me on citizen engagement. They know that they cannot beat me, and I don't know how much Marvin Arrington, because he and I don't really talk like that. I don't know how much he's involved in this plan, but I know the members of council who are doing this. They know they can't beat me on citizen engagement. They know that they can't beat me on policy. I've been right about the police for years. I was right about us rushing to do the sanitation project too soon. I was right about our city attorney not being qualified. I've been right on the issues so many times over the years. So instead of debating me on policy, they came up with this plan to attack my character. Half of our council has traveled outside of the country. I'm going to call out names. Councilwoman Bell traveled to Colombia with the same group that I went to Colombia with. She traveled to Africa. She went to Ethiopia. I was actually supposed to go to that trip. I went to Ghana. Councilwoman Williams Brown, who's up for election this year, has been to India. And then even after all of this travel debacle, she went to Nigeria. I support all of them. I support all of that travel because we do need to be promoting South Fulton internationally. But these members decided that they were going to make an issue of my travel. And in doing that, they voted to freeze my budget. They voted to take the car that is offered to the mayor. I want you to know that I bought a car. I bought an electric car that I owned, a Chevy Volt. I bought it in 2021 when I was still on council. From 2021 to 2025, I put 180,000 miles on that car. And I never drove anywhere but for the city. I went to visit my family in Alabama one time, but I went to Alabama to support workers as the mayor. I went on trips to Savannah. I traveled all around the city. That car is gone. They took my car and they froze my budget so that I can't send out a mailer to let you know I actually am the only citywide elected official. I should be able to send out a citywide mailer saying, here are all the things that I've done, or this is a town hall that we're going to have. I haven't been able to do those things because my budget has been frozen since March of this year.
All right, thank you for that. Now we're going to take some questions from the audience. Next, we have Kelvin Davis. Kelvin, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Hello, Mayor Khalid. Thank you for fielding my question. I just want to say that, I've been following, your campaigns as well as, your time in office, for a while. And, I was a supporter for quite a while. And, if I wasn't running, it's possible I would still support you. But I just want to ask a question because, I follow everyone, pretty closely within this campaign, especially the mayors, and I follow their platform. So I'm just as interested in you guys' platforms as, the voters are, because, even if I don't win, I want to know that we have the best candidate, for this city. But I came into this meeting pretty late because I had another forum. But I heard you speak on your plans for data centers and the community. And you spoke on a moratorium on data centers as well as community benefits. That really, spiked my interest because 3 days ago, I released a article to the news that spoke directly on moratoriums and community benefits. So being that, I haven't seen that, on your platform, I'm very curious, to hear more details and meat and potatoes about, your moratorium and the community benefits, because it seems to be overlap. And, I just want to ensure, we're not trying to, fix the same problem.
Well, I think we are trying to fix the same problem, and I think that's okay. But thank you for that. And you have the screen up. Thank you so much, Ron. I'm gonna give a long answer, but I want you all to follow along with me. Do you remember a couple years ago? I think it was like 2018. Amazon announced they were going to do a Q2 headquarters. Do you all remember that? Amazon announced they were going to do a Q2 headquarters, and they solicited bids from cities, and all the cities all around the country, including South Fulton, lined up, right? Amazon wanted all of this information about our city, about our demographics, about our traffic patterns, because they said they were trying to find the perfect place for their Q2 headquarters. At the end of it all, they chose Washington, D.C. And what came out, Google stories about this. What came out is that they were planning to choose Washington, D.C. all along. And they used this process to get information about our demographics, about our education levels, about our transportation and there were a lot of questions about roads and transportation and all of these things, and it was supposed to be because they wanted to put their headquarters in just the right place. But it turned out the entire thing was a ruse to get our data so that they could more strategically put their distribution centers and their data centers, right, and build out their supply chain and their logistics supply chain. They were never coming to South Fulton. Mm-hmm. Lots of people have talked about economic development and we can't have economic development if we're on the news all the time. Well, decades before we were ever on the news, when Bill Edwards was a county commissioner, and even before him, people had been promoting business in South Fulton. To date, there are no Fortune 100 headquarters in South Fulton. The city of Sandy Springs has more Fortune 500 companies headquartered there than the city of Atlanta. The people who run these companies, they don't look like us. When they think about moving their headquarters or setting up a regional headquarters, they're looking at really two things. They're looking at the education levels of the city that they're thinking about moving to, and the dirty secret is that they are also looking at the demographics. The people that run this country the people that run these companies, for the most part, ask people who've been in these boardrooms, the majority of them don't look like us, and they don't want their children going to school with our children. So they're not bringing their headquarters to South Fulton. One of the reasons that I talk about us being the blackest city in America is that we should be doing business with people who want to do business with us. There are certain Fortune 100 companies that would not be Fortune 100 companies, but for Black consumers, companies like Nike. We should be able to go to them and say, your Southeast regional headquarters at least should be in South Fulton because we move the culture for your company. But I'm not waiting for them either, which is why I started traveling internationally. If you go to Vision for South Fulton, you can go to kobicares.com/vision. Ron has it up right now. If you click on Vision for South Fulton, you can see my entire strategic plan about us doing business. A lot of folks have talked about we can build our community by circulating our dollar in our community. But outside of our community, in the world, there is a diaspora of companies, a diaspora of markets, a diaspora of consumers and entrepreneurs that are excited about our city and want to do business. Every place that I went in my international travels, I was invited to by business people who were interested in setting up business and doing business with the city of South Fulton. The continent of Africa has 60% of the world's resources. When I was there in Ghana, I met a gentleman who was 35. He was under 40. He owned a gold mine. He owned a gold mine. So if you're making microchips, there are so many things that you need gold for besides just currency. We could have a direct supply with a gold mine in Ghana, right? We don't need a middleman. We don't need to go to Jacob the Jeweler or whoever, any of these De Beers or any of these companies, because our cousins on the continent want to do business with us. So that's the first part of the economic development policy. The next part has to do with our future land use map. Ron, if you would go to City of South Fulton GA.gov, if you will put that in the search bar, because I want people to see this. This is what I have been working with the assistant city manager and the planning and zoning department on. I wanted to make sure that our future land use map is setting us up to do business throughout, to attract the kind of businesses and grow the kind of businesses that are going to make our city stronger. A pop-up should have come up as soon as you hit that page. A pop-up should have come up. That is our comprehensive plan update. I'm going to put it in the chat. I want all of you to see it. You can also go to the page that I'm building out now, kobicares.com/zoning, to find this information. I'm going to put it in the chat, and I'm going to ask Ron if you will pull this up. Where is the chat? Okay, here it is. We are working on revising our future land use map. This is our 20-year plan for all of the land in our city. You click right there, that title. Here you can see our future land use map. Remember I said we need to slow things down so we can get more input? How many contributions do you see so far? 8 people have commented on this map. It's been out for weeks, but people didn't know it was there, right? And so part of what I am doing in this campaign is making sure that the residents know that it's there. We are already advertising to hold a second meeting on this map in November the 12th, our November the 12th meeting. So if you don't have enough time to comment before Tuesday, we're going to hold another meeting. You can see, if you go back up to the top, it says that your comments will be until October 14th. I've told them to already change that. We're not closing it on the 14th. We're going to keep it open through December until we vote so that we can get as many comments as possible. The first thing that you need to do is type in your address and see what the future land use is planned for where you live now. If you text the word news to 55444, I will be sending out a newsletter from the city. I'm just typing this in so people know where to text news to 55444. I will be sending out a letter for the city that talks about this more in depth. But I held a focus group with South Fulton farmers. There was a community of farmers whose future land use is a subdivision. One of the farmers in that focus group is hoping to pass this land down to his son to farm, but we've already decided that the future land use for it is a subdivision. I want you to scroll back up to the top for me. The tab next to future land use map is character areas. On the other side, to the left of future land use map is character areas. So a lot of council, we were all given these maps. Mayor and council were given these maps, and they said, make the sort of changes that you think you need to make to the maps. But what I did is I focused on not necessarily individual parcels and whether they were suburban 1 or suburban 2 or whether they were, commercial or residential. I said, what kinds of businesses are we trying to attract? Where are we trying to attract and or grow them? And let that inform our future land use map. So if you scroll back up, you'll see the character areas. If you got to go to the just click it again. Maybe it'll refresh. But at the top, it lists what these character areas are. I have thought a lot, and I've talked to experts. I didn't just come up with this myself. I've been to lots of conferences. I've talked to lots of experts, and I've talked to our business owners here. 2 places where I think that we can grow economically as a city. One is the film industry. That is one of the fastest growing industries in Georgia. Even though lots of things are going overseas now, there's still so much being filmed in the city of South Fulton. Along Fulton Industrial Boulevard, there are a dozen sound stages, prop houses. During the pandemic, I don't know if any of you watched the BET Awards. During the pandemic, they were filmed here in the city of South Fulton. If you're a fan of Power, the Stars Network, and Ghost and the Power Universe, all of those things, the Book of Power, all of those were filmed right next to City Hall. We haven't been capturing any of that revenue, or not nearly as much of it as we should be capturing, right? So I am working with my film and media manager. We're going to be bringing a revised film ordinance. We need to incentivize people, just like you see filmmakers show the Made in Georgia peach logo at the end. Everything that's shot in the city of South Fulton should say shot in the city of South Fulton. They don't put that peach logo on films out of a favor to Georgia. They do it because there's a tax credit attached to it, right? Whether we do a tax credit or whether we give a reduction in the cost of filming permits, we can incentivize people to advertise that they're shooting these things in the city of South Fulton. So all of the character areas that you see on this comprehensive plan, on this character areas map, these were things, I don't know what other council people did, but these were things that I came to the Sizemore Group, who are the consultants that are helping us do this, to say, these are the character areas that I want to see in the city of South Fulton. One of them was a film industry character area, which is the green area you see at the top of the map of the city of South Fulton. And the second one, the lighter green, was an agribusiness area. We have more farmland than any city in Metro Atlanta, and more farmland, thousands and thousands of acres of farmland. Most metro cities across the country don't have this. If we begin investing in our farmers and subsidizing our farmers and helping them to increase the production on those plots of land, that increases not only it not only addresses the food scarcity issues that we have, and we can grow farm to table restaurants, right? Because we have these farms that are producing that much. But it also creates new revenue streams because the more profitable our farmers are, the more revenue we collect as a city. I don't know if you know, but Georgia's #1 economic business is agriculture. We are still an agricultural state. And by right, farmers have rights. The initial zoning of all Georgia land is agricultural. We are beginning to turn so much of our valuable farmland into subdivisions. We are adding to congestion, we are adding to traffic, but we are not necessarily creating new business. We're creating new consumers and we are creating new taxpayers, but we are not creating new business. And so I have been working with South Fulton farmers to not just do these farmers markets, right, that every council member has in every district, but to actually increase their capacity to grow. And so these are the two industries that I think we need to be attracting more film business and we need to be growing more agribusiness. And these are businesses, these are things that are ripe, that our city is just ready to do, that we don't have to incentivize or beg corporations with tax breaks to please come and be a part of our city. We can grow our own millionaire entrepreneurs from our farmers, and we can support the creatives that are already happening in our city. The last character area is entertainment districts. Old National should be the downtown of South Fulton. When I first created the Downtown Development Authority, I talked about it in 2019. The problem is that 4 members of our council don't represent Old National. So every time a majority of our council gets to vote against Old National, gets to vote against expanding or doing a downtown development authority or focusing an entertainment district around Old National, they vote against it. I'm hoping that we have a mayor and council next year that sees that the highest density of businesses, the highest density of transit, and the highest density of people is along that Old National corridor. We have more nightlife and entertainment along that corridor than anywhere on the south side, probably anywhere in the metro area. If we lean into that, we can build a downtown, we can build up, we can build vertically the way that we see happening all around the perimeter at the Battery and at Dunwoody and at Perimeter Center, and even now in Dorcroft and I'm sorry, in Dorville and all around the perimeter. We see this happening, but it's not happening on our side of town because we haven't really concentrated our economic development efforts in that way. We should be building high rises and condos and lofts that will attract the next generation of South Fulton taxpayers. A lot of millennials and Gen Zs want to live in walkable communities. If you go to kobicares.com/zoning, you will see that for the past several years, I have been advocating for Old National's overlay district and other overlay districts in our city to mandate that parking be put in the back of buildings and that we build up to the street. That's the way that we used to build cities. That is a trend that is coming back. It makes more walkable, lively neighborhoods. And so this is what I really focused our future land use map on. And lastly, I will say I have advocated for, and we will talk about on October 14th, we will talk about collapsing subdivision 1 and subdivision 2. Subdivision 2 are smaller are smaller, cheaper houses. Right now, all of our neighborhoods are classified as subdivision 1 or subdivision 2. There is not a single parcel of land that is labeled subdivision 2 north of Roosevelt Highway. All of the subdivision 2 is on the south side. All of the smaller, we have been zoned for smaller, cheaper, affordable housing. And There are lots of people that think that there's an inequity in that. I think that there's an opportunity in that. If all of the density is being planned for the south side of the city, then that's where our downtown is. But you can't give us all of the density and all of the cheap and affordable housing and not also give us the quality of businesses and economic development that would build a downtown. And right now, because we've had this gridlock on council, that is what has been happening. So please, again, text news to 55444 so that you can learn more about this future land use map. Please go to City of South Fulton, ga.gov, find this, it should pop right up, find this future land use map plan, and if you can't find it, you can go to kobicares.com/zoning. It's right there at the top of my page. You can click, you can make your comments, and then even if they close that box, or whether they close that box or not, if you scroll up a little bit, Ron, you'll see another survey on my page where you can provide even more input on the kinds of development that you would like to see in our city. This is the kind of citizen-driven development that I am hoping to do, that I've always done, and I'm hoping to continue to do with you.
All right, thank you for that. Now, we're going to go to Yashana Colbert Bradford. You have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
I'm gonna
All
say
right.
thank you. I think I forgot my question. But
Okay.
all the information was really great. Oh, I know what my question was. I was just gonna ask if he did, if he was able to win this term again, would he be willing to, or anybody, I would say that, would you be willing to have an advisory board? Someone appointed to each district that is a citizen, like the citizens who are engaged with the coalition, or who have run for office before, to be a part of that advisory board and help to advise the council and the mayor, to help mediate that part when you all have meetings or even outside. And these would be experts, individuals who are citizens, but experts in economic development, architecture, engineering, that's the word I was looking for, engineering, an attorney, all of those individuals who would be willing to volunteer their time to just help assist and advise and to mediate to get the city all on one page. I think that is something that we haven't thought of or looked at, but it's definitely needed, to continue to make sure that we're able to move in a direction forward, because like most citizens, I think I'm tired of hearing about the negativity and seeing the negativity with City of South Fulton. But thank you so much for this platform. Again, Rashad and Mr. Run. And thank you, for Mayor Khalid, for being here to just give us all of your knowledge that you have.
Thank you. And absolutely, yes. I had an advisory board. I had a transition commission when I was elected the first time around. But our charter says that all boards and commissions have to be approved by council, and they didn't approve my board. We kept meeting anyway for a time, just informally. But yes, I would absolutely be willing to do that. I think what's really important is, and I'm going to say this. I've said this in a debate before, and I'm saying it now. Do not vote for me if you are going to vote for the same council people that we've had on council. It's clear that I haven't worked well with them. We haven't worked well together. I'm not going to point any fingers. I'm going to say, if you're going to vote for me, if you like these ideas, you have to vote for a council that supports me. If you don't like these ideas, vote for somebody else, but make sure that the council people that you vote for line up with the vision that your mayoral candidate is talking about. In District 4, I know Mel Keaton is on. I believe Mike Johnson is on. These are two men that build things for a living, right? Like Mel works for the water department. There's a question about whether or not we have the infrastructure for all of this kind of building. Mel Keaton can help us figure that out. Mike Johnson is a construction manager. He's worked on projects from the Georgia Aquarium to the airport. We're talking about, we need experts. We need engineers on the board. We need people who understand these visions. I see a comment about impact fees. We have impact fees. We have an entire impact fee schedule that has been recommended to council and that council is approving. You're going to see impact fees. In the future, we have an impact fee advisory board. I've appointed people to. I made sure that there were farmers and environmentalists on that board, because we need to be thinking about the environmental impacts that we are doing that are come with the development that we're having. So just to make sure that when you go to vote, or even when you're in these forums, ask the candidates, who do you like for mayor? Whose ideas, you don't have to say who do you like as a person, but like, do you support the things that Mayor Kobi is talking about, or do you support the things that another candidate is talking about? Because I'm trying to make a decision. I'm trying to make sure that our next mayor and council are in alignment with one another.
All right, thank you for that. Now, there was a question in the chat from Dr. Warren Henry. Please, if you want to ask your question.
Yes, sir. First of all, Mayor, thank you for your service. And I've been enjoying listening to you share. I almost feel reluctant to ask my questions because it goes back, and I would love to continue to hear your vision for our future. But the two-part question that I have to ask: number one, when the former mayor Bill Edwards was in, I know that things were changed in the charter to assist him and to help his term to be a whole lot better. But when you came aboard, they changed some things back. I'd like for you to talk on that. And then secondly, I know that it was either your first or second council meeting that the agendas were so huge that you either tabled or vetoed a lot of the things they were trying to get done. And I would like for you to share on that. Again, I love what I'm hearing, and I hate to go back, but if you don't mind just touching base on those, I'd appreciate it.
All right, the first question was about the changes to the charter. So one of them was the very first change. Well, Roger Bruce, or I can't remember, but which one of them it was. But you know, they wrote all these charter changes in, and one of them was that the mayor's appointments, the original charter said all the mayor's appointments were subject to confirmation by council. They gave Bill Edwards more power and said that he could try 3 times with council, and that if council wouldn't approve his appointees, that on his 4th try, he could make an appointment without council's approval. The minute that I won that election, December 5th, 2021, the very next council meeting, they changed it back and took that power away. So the city manager that we have was given to me actually by council. I created a committee because I came in trying to share power. I created a committee. I said, y'all pick who y'all want, because y'all have already told me that, you know, I had mentioned some names. I was looking at some people and they said no to all of the candidates, right? So that was one of the first changes that they made. I tried to fire the city attorney. They hired the city attorney back, who was a horrible city attorney. They later, a couple years later, they put him on a performance improvement plan and he resigned. But they changed the ability for me to fire even the people that I could fire, right? And so they changed, they mandated that certain things had to be on the agenda in certain orders, you know, and it's because I was doing this work to try and streamline our agenda to make it more subject focused so that we could think comprehensively. I don't know if you remember in one of the first meetings, Councilman Willis was pushing for tennis lights at the tennis center, and they were pushing for money for the pool. And I said, well, let's talk about parks all together. Let's not rush these things. I was outvoted by council. I can't remember how many hundred thousands of dollars we spent on lights at the tennis center, and they still didn't work because all the copper had been stolen out of the lights. We spent $7 million on the pool for Welcome All Park. And because we had an attorney that didn't read the contract, it doesn't have a warranty. It's already leaking, and it doesn't have a warranty. And we spent $7 million because we had to do it twice because there was a problem, because we rushed, and there was a problem with the plan. I can't even remember what the problem was. But slowing things down, slowing down our decision-making process helps us make better decisions and not waste money. So those are some of the changes that were made. And what was your second question?
The second question was in regards to, I believe, your first or second council meeting. The agendas were so thick. I believe it was things that the previous mayor had on the agenda that you actually wanted more time to look at. So you kind of tabled or vetoed a
Yes.
lot of the action.
Yes, and I think at our December meeting we approved $1 million of we approved $1 million of projects, right? They were like on the consent agenda. I came in, one of the things that you'll see on the agenda now is that I never put anything over $100,000 on a consent agenda, right? It's either $100,000 or $250,000, but I don't put $1 million project on the consent agenda. We need to talk about it, and then we need to like vote on it, like not all together. In the first few meetings, you will remember that first year, it still happens sometimes, but like council members would say, I motion to approve this and item number 4 and item number 5, and they would do all of these items in order. When our city manager walked in, there were hundreds of thousands of dollars of public works projects that were being done for which no one could produce any contracts. The Public Works Department didn't have the contracts. The Finance Department, who was paying for the projects, couldn't produce the contracts. The Legal Department that's supposed to review them couldn't produce the contracts. The Clerk's Department that's supposed to keep all the contracts couldn't produce the contracts. And so we actually ended up putting the contracts back on the agenda because the work was already being done, right? So we were just doing CYA for the contracts, right? But when I walked in the office at the behest of Jewel Johnson, who was a candidate for mayor, in order to get her endorsement, she said, you have to ask for a forensic audit. To date, we have never done a forensic audit of our public works contracts. Had we done it, we might have found out that all of this work is being done. We wouldn't have had to wait 2 years for a new city manager to come in to discover that. But we didn't do that. But instead, this council voted to do a forensic audit of my P card alone, not everyone else's P cards, because there are student loan payments on those P cards. There are so many dry cleaning and food payments on the P cards that the city manager has instituted a new policy. They have a lock on the P cards now where you can't buy food. You can't do dry cleaning. You have to get the city manager's permission if you want to do those things. And so slowing down our process, doing reviews, doing forensic audits of our $1 million, we can quibble about whether or not I should have spent a couple $1,000s on a wall, a mural in my office. But the mistakes I'm talking about are $1 million mistakes that we have made. And I do invite everybody. It hasn't come up, but Mayor Mondays, anybody can walk in and get 20 minutes with the mayor. I do invite you to come in and see the things that I've done in that office to make it more interactive and more attractive to the next generation, to millennial and Gen Z. You'll see that everyone that's working in my office is under 40. And we are really trying to build an office of the future for a workforce of the future.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Now, the question I had was kind of based off of Yashina's question about the advisory board. So when you issue vetoes, we've seen that 100%. Well, all the vetoes have been overturned, right? So, do you truly have veto power? And if the council is just going to overturn every single veto that you have, and do you think that there should be some oversight over so a board to review your vetoes and then view the council's reason for overturning the vetoes and make a recommendation?
I think that an easier change is another charter change that I'm proposing is that you need unanimous or at least 6 out of 7 council people to overturn a veto. So right now you need 5, and a lot of times they were able to get 5. So I don't really know what the answer is. I think in those first few years, in the same way that Mitch McConnell stood on the floor of the U.S. Senate and said we're going to make Obama a one-term president, and then block everything that he tried to do. I think that we saw that from council in those first few years. I have a veto coming up of the apartments. I hope that won't be overturned because over 350 citizens signed a what is the word for the document? It's getting a little late.
Petition?
A petition over 300. It's for 314 apartments. Over 350 citizens said that they didn't want it. So hopefully that one will be upheld. There's a veto for warehouses. I think that our citizens' record on opposing warehouses in the city is very well known. So hopefully that will be upheld. But it's an election year, so who knows what will happen.
All right, thank you for that. Now, there was also another question. There was a question in the chat, and it said, and I'm going to read it. It says, since warehouses have a relatively short lifespan, can CDRA or the Planning Commission create standards for warehouse developers to plan warehouses to be built in such a way that the structural foundation and main components can be constructed for live, work, housing, or mixed development? Commercial, residential.
I don't know. I don't know that that's possible. I mean, anything can be retrofitted. Anything can be retrofitted if you have enough money, right? We see warehouse and loft conversions. You see them all the time. Castleberry Hill is a great example of a neighborhood that was all warehouses. The difference between those warehouses and the warehouses of today is the size. Those warehouses, maybe are a city block. The warehouses that are being built now are the size of football fields. They're measured in 2 and 3 football fields, right? Data centers, which are nothing but warehouses for computers, are even bigger, right? They're fortress-like in their construction. They're actually more akin to malls. And if you think about all of the malls that are closing and how difficult it is to retrofit something the size of a mall, at this point, I think that we have enough warehouses in the city of South Fulton. And one of the things that I'm calling for in my moratorium, you've heard that other people are calling for moratoriums as well. But one of the things that I'm calling for in my moratorium is a study. A lot of warehouses are being built on, it's built on what's called on spec, which means they don't have a tenant. They're just building it hoping that they can attract a tenant, right? I think that we need an inventory of how much available warehouse space already exists. And instead of building more warehouses on spec, we have a page on our economic development website. And if someone is in need of warehousing space, we say, well, here are all of these warehouses that we already have. They may not even be in our city, right? Because many of the warehouses are in Union City because they haven't been a very good neighbor to us. But whether they're in Union City or Fairburn or somewhere else, right? If they're in the South Fulton area, we can say, hey, instead of building a warehouse, why don't you take a look at this empty space that is that is available. And so that is something, I see Kelvin saying that that's written in his plan. It's something that we have been talking about on council. It is, again, 90% of the job is listening, and it's something that was said by residents when they've come to council meetings opposing warehouses, particularly the ones that are built on spec.
Thank you for that. There was also another question that was sent to me directly. And this question is regarding a proposal that you made at the last council meeting that a lot of residents were upset about regarding the council's ability to share their city council chambers with the planning commission. What were your thoughts about what you heard as far as the council's response to that proposal?
So this is I'm going to tell you, this is one of what happened is we built we retrofitted City Hall, right, which was it wasn't a warehouse, but it was an office industrial space, and the city manager came in and decided, when we found all this mold that was throughout the building that was first discovered by Zion. I would like to say the first dog was the first one that brought it to my attention, because he never wanted to stay in the mayor's office, which had the highest mold count in City Hall. But when we found all this mold, we did a gut renovation, and we built a city council chambers, and we built a planning commission room. The city manager came to me. Now, she was in charge of all of that, right? She's a city manager. But she came to me, and I said, I don't think that room is going to be big enough for a planning commission meeting. Turns out it wasn't. And so the city, I said, why don't we have the planning commission meetings in the city council chamber? We do the advertisements for the planning commission meetings months in advance. So people had already gotten used to coming to City Hall for the planning commission meetings. We spent, I don't know, over $100,000 on camera equipment just for those rooms, that it's fixed camera so that we can broadcast the meetings. I don't know if you know, but not every city broadcasts their meetings on YouTube. Union City is building all these warehouses. They don't have a YouTube. You can't see their meetings, right? I thought that would be a good idea. Council members felt like they wanted it was a sacred chamber for the council. There were members of council who said, no, this is the people's chamber. But it failed for a lack of 4 votes. So it was the council's decision. So right now they are meeting in the gymnasium of Welcome All Park. And if there is football practice, then the developers are sharing the bathrooms with the kids and the families that are there for football practice or basketball practice or dance rehearsal, or all the things that are happening in that space. And so that was the decision that was made.
All right, thank you so much for that. And I don't see any additional questions. So if you can just proceed to your closing remarks. If you have any campaign events coming up. I'm sorry. Let me turn it back to Calvin. Calvin was the moderator. Calvin, did you have any additional questions?
Close us out, Brother Calvin.
No, I was just sitting here listening and reflecting on some of the past 8 years that we went through. And I just want to say to you, Mr. Mayor, you've been pretty impressive tonight. I came here with an open mind. I'm not behind any one candidate, but your ideas, you were very insightful. You were very I could see your vision, and your work speaks for itself, the work you put in with your visuals. And just keep doing what you're doing, man, and good luck.
Thank you.
No, go ahead, finish.
I was going to say, I'll say in closing, like, we talked a lot tonight. I talked a lot tonight.
Well,
there's so much potential in this city, right? You deserve a mayor with a vision beyond data centers and warehouses as economic development. You deserve a mayor with vision beyond tax breaks, right? You deserve a mayor who will tell the truth publicly and privately, even when, as you've heard tonight and as you've heard in debates, even when it makes people uncomfortable or it turns people off, a mayor that will speak his mind and tell you the truth about what he's thinking, about what he's seeing, and about what is possible. And you deserve a mayor, you deserve a city council that will support the elected leader that you all choose. And so, whatever that means for you, I really hope that you vote with courage, and that you listen to these candidates and not just what we are saying at election time. Some of you have never heard me before tonight, but this weekend I will send out my, I don't know, 240th newsletter. There are 8 years of 240 newsletters. You can look at the council meetings. The things that I am talking about in this meeting tonight, I have been talking about for 8 years. I've not been sitting quietly on council looking pretty and having no opinion. I have told you what my vision is. I have told you about the direction that we should be heading in as a city, and it has been consistent. I have been consistent. I take no money from developers. I am unbought. I am unbought, and I am driven by citizens to build the city that you want. So with that, I ask for your vote. Please visit kobicares.com to learn more. Please visit kobicares.com/zoning to learn more about this future land use plan that we have, and visit the City of South Fulton GA.gov, where you can look to see what your house is being zoned for in the future, what your neighborhood, the future land use that is being planned for, and you can leave comments. We need more than 8 comments on that page before we approve a 20-year future land use plan. Thank you for listening. South Fulton forever.
Before we let you
Thank you,
go,
Mr. Mayor.
yeah, and before we let you go, it was brought to my attention I missed the comment. So the question was, if you are not elected, would you be willing to serve the city in an advisory board?
I'm always gonna tell you the truth. Probably not. Someone asked me this question last year, like last election cycle, if not elected, will you stay involved? Probably not. I think that if you talk to council members, you will find that the mayor who lost the last election was behind the scenes, pulling the strings and stirring up all kinds of drama. If you don't want me, I'm not going to stay where I'm not wanted, and I'm not going to keep trying to influence the council or the policy making of this city. So I'm going to bow out gracefully. I'm going to stay out of city council's business. I'm not going to be stirring up stuff behind the scenes. I will continue to pray for the city, and I may continue to talk to people individually, but I'm going to go off and live my best life.
All right, thank you so much for that, and we appreciate you taking an extended amount of time to answer all the questions that came through the chat as well as from the audience. And we appreciate your time. Calvin Bennett, thank you so much for moderating this for us this evening.
Thank you for
And
having
before,
me.
oh, no problem. And before I let everybody go, this is our last one for this week. We will be back on Monday. On Monday, we will be with Ray Mills. Tuesday, there is a city council meeting. Wait a minute. On the 15th, we will be with Ray Mills. And then Tuesday's a city council meeting, right, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So go ahead.
Oh, I said at 4, 5, and 7 p.m.
Okay.
We'll have our first hearing on the future land use map around 6 p.m.
All right. Thank you for that. And then we have Ryan Olson next week. And then we will conclude that week with Joseph Adeyemi. So everybody have a good night. And again, Mayor and Calvin, thank you so much for participating.
All right, good night now.
All
Good
right.
night, everyone.
You go.